From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
and this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by
Vitamin energy.
The vitamins.
Energy.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. Coming up on today's show, 5-star Ira Schofield joins the program, helps us read between the lines from a very illuminating Wednesday press conference. We discuss reasons for hope, causes for concern, and we bury the hatchet on a 20-year grudge that I've held with him. Wake Up Warchant is presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com, promo code Corey. Psych. Warchant BOGO, Warchant BOGO, buy one, get one free. And listen, I've got my favorites, the Immune Plus Tango Orange, the Workout Plus Sour Apple. Time to make room on the podium, everybody. There's now an extra strength Immune Plus that's blue raspberry flavored, and it tastes so good. I mean, legit. I know we're not drinking this for the palate delight. We're drinking it for the energy, 260 milligrams, all natural caffeine, and a little bit of green tea extract for a little bit of oomph. And obviously the vitamins, the B6, the B12, the nutrients, the stuff that you would find in a pre-workout to get that pump going. It's all in one little shot, not even 2 whole ounces. Award-winning, patent pending on our guys as they keep creating different flavors, different varieties to keep you powered throughout your day with no sugar crash because there's no sugar. VitaminEnergy.com, use the promo code WarchantBOGO, Warchant BOGO, buy one, get one free. Warchant.com, Ultimate Seminole Sports Source, FSU1, promo code, 2 months, $1. I'm not paying you guys. I'm not subscribing. What do you guys know? You said we're going to be awesome. We lost to Georgia Tech. A lot of that out there. Hey, guess what? Mike Norvell's still going to make $10 million. So FSU won. 2 months, $1. Go do it. Get on the message board. Get on the tribal council. Throw some heat my way. Throw it Corey's way or Ira's way. We'll respond, and we'll be kind about it. We'll work through it together, everybody. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. Ira's here. When we were in Dublin, I'm like, hey, bro, I just need 20 minutes out of you. He's like, yeah, sure, no problem. I've said this a few times, numerous times, and maybe you guys think I'm patronizing, and Corey's not here to throw his wit and sarcasm into dampening the mood here. But when I tell you how awesome Ira is, just know that I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Ira's the dude. Golly, I think he had flight issues up the yin yang, somehow drove up from Orlando, knocked out a bunch of content over on the site to keep everybody informed, and then he'll be at practice later this morning. And yeah, I'm like, hey, dude, I need you on the podcast, but I need 25 minutes out of you because your 5-star show fell. And he's like, yeah, sign me up. Let's do it. So I think there's a lot of good stuff in here. We obviously talk about the loss still, reasons that we feel good, and then a little bit of a rant I had, which God bless him. I think he held on the entire time and figured out what I was trying to say. So we always appreciate that. So we'll try to do another show tomorrow as well. It's going to be Renegade Express based, but it's going to be Ira themed. So we're only going to take 5 questions since he's 5-star Ira Schofield. The 5 best ones, if you will. Maybe 6. We'll do the 5 other best ones, but the best one, the one that's generating discussion sparked by Cummins, we'll talk about that one. It'll be featured, maybe a video. Maybe I'll figure out some other way to feature it without having to get Ira on the camera because I don't want to ask him to do too much. But that winner will enter a drawing for an end-of-month gift bag, which will give out the August gift bag in the drawing coming up tomorrow. And then they'll enter into a grand prize drawing for a portable generator or portable power station. So listen, you can subscribe to Warchant.com. You get all Ira stuff, all of Core stuff, all the recruiting stuff, getting on the message boards, mixing it up. And then you can enter the Renegade Express. You can get on the show, which whatever, I get it. It's not worth a lot of money. But you could win like a $600, $800 portable generator, portable power station off a $1 bet on yourself. So go to Warchant.com, use the promo code FSU1, 2 months, $1. Ira and I, talking Noles. Let's go. All right, without further ado, here he is, everybody. Ira Schofield joining us here on the program, the managing editor of Warchant.com, our guy, road warrior yesterday, somehow drove from Tallahassee to Orlando and like knocked out 2 stories in between all that. I'd ask you to give us your secrets, Ira, but we're limited on time. But how are you, man? You doing well, man?
I'm great, man. Any chance I'm going to Wally Pip Corey here? Is there can we
It's
my big opening here this week?
It's on the table, dude. It's on the table right now, brother. So if you give me 25 minutes of just power and hot takes, man, we'll see. You know, I want to just call this way. This is 5 stars. It's Ira and A Train. This show really is what it is.
There you go.
Call it. Not even wake up. All right, man. So they had the press conference, the Monday press conference held on Wednesday, 2 days later than usual because they're playing 2 days later than usual. They're playing on a Monday this time around against Boston College. You know, your story, the kind of the crux of it was just the fact that Mike Norvell kept saying sickening. The results, and not so much, I guess, the effort, but he can't say that. I don't know. I feel like there's still angst within the fan base. So I guess we still need to have like a therapy session, let everybody still get their angstness out. But I don't know how many coaches would really kind of step up, Ira, and I don't want to say own the result, but just at least like empathize. I don't know. For some reason, I think that kind of matters right now. Does it? What was your takeaway from him repeatedly talking about the pain from the Dublin loss?
I think it does. I mean, especially because it seems genuine. You know, like he started off the press conference by saying how, you know, he just appreciated how many Noles were there. It seemed like he was kind of overwhelmed by all the support. How many people, you know, I mean, took their families in some cases halfway across the world for this football game, and then for his team to go out there and play. I mean, just far below expectations. You know, I think he felt awful about that. You know, I think he feels like they didn't hold up their end of the bargain. And then, you know, I also think that was cool that he acknowledged that. You know, like after the game, he had to give Georgia Tech credit. And if he didn't, you know, you would have said that's not classy or whatever. You know, we would have, you know, people would have said, you know, you can't just blame yourself. You got to give credit to the other team. And he did that. But I also thought it was good that he also acknowledged that, yeah, the Florida State should have beat that team. Florida State's a much more talented team. And I think at one point he said there was like 30 plays that if they just make those plays, that the outcome of the game is different. Well, think about that. 30 things basically, 30 things went wrong or 30 mistakes they made to lose a game on a walk-off field goal. I think that gives you an idea how much more talented he thinks his team is. And again, I think it's good to admit that. I don't know. I just think it's more honest than a lot of coaches.
Yeah, well said. I mean, exactly. That the confluence of things that had to happen for Florida State to lose that game is mind-boggling. It's staggering. It's, like you said, 30 plays, which I don't know if that is kind of like helped me flush it and move on. I understand like people are still upset, but again, like we saw that this was going to be like a flawed roster. We saw probably most of us making preseason predictions or thinking like a 10-2 team. You know, maybe kind of on the higher end of the ceiling. So the fact that, you know, Georgia Tech is probably going to be, I would say maybe like a 7-8 win team's probably their floor at this point. All that had to go wrong for them to beat you. Makes you feel good about moving forward. I mean, is that kind of safe to say, at least the assessment so far?
Well, I think, you know, if you the vast majority of people that were at that game or watched on television have not seen one practice. You know, they've seen, maybe if they're really diehard fans, they've watched the videos that we put out. They've listened to us talk about them. Obviously, if their listeners will wake up, they're serious fans for sure. You know, maybe they've seen, you know, they paid attention to the portal and the roster acquisition and, you know, had a feel for what it was going to look like, but nobody really knew what it was going to look like other than what we've said or videos that they've watched or heard Norvell and his coaches talk. And then you see that product on the field. I'm sure some people were, you know, mortified, you know, like what is
they
this?
They are, Ira. They are. We're taking it every single day on the YouTube comments. It's ridiculous. What are you guys thinking? If you guys would have just set us up for this, we would okay. And it's like, what? But as a
I think, but I understand where they're coming from, right? I mean, like, you know, they're just basing their excitement.
We're not lying, Ira. We're not lying, man. We saw pretty good. We saw a team that did not look like a 13-0 team practice. We saw some of those flaws. This coaching staff talked about how explosive they are, how great the defense is playing. Like their words match what our eyes saw, and we said that we saw probably a good team with some flaws. And I mean, the flaws were just, I guess, the flaws that reared their heads were the ones that we didn't talk about. So I guess that's why we're
No,
catching heat, which is fine.
but that's the thing. Like, I don't think what they played was what we saw at practice.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe some things, but and the other part of it is, so I was taking a tour in Dublin. Kim and I took a little tour the day after the game, and went out to see some sights, and a couple of FSU fans were sitting next to us, and he was kind of asking, like, one of the guy and his wife, and he was asking, basically, how surprised were we? And I was like, man, totally surprised. And
Yeah.
I did say that, and I think we've all had this conversation at different points, practice is practice, the one, and we don't get to see scrimmages. And, the part of practice you don't really get to see is you don't really get to see how guys act when plays really matter. And when a team's running the ball down your throat, like, how do you handle that? Or because, in the practice, for people that don't know, I mean, like, practice, what would you say? 98% of practice is not game type situations. I mean, because even when they do it 11 on 11, a lot of times it's just like we're only practicing third downs, or we're only practicing first downs, or we're going to move the ball whether or not the play succeeds or not, because we've got a script of what. There's very little that's actually like a game, and so that some of that happened in scrimmages, and we're not at those. So that was kind of one thing that was in the back of my mind all during camp was, we don't know how they're going to react if things are going poorly, or if, whatever the case, or if things are going well. And so from that standpoint, I think that's where things went most awry. It seemed to me like there was a lot of instances where guys, I don't know, like, just didn't understand the situation, or defensively, like on a, just certain situations where you just, on this play, you cannot let the quarterback get outside of you on this play. And then they would let the quarterback get outside of them, or just, things like that, from an IQ standpoint or a football savvy standpoint. Those are things that, we had no way to judge any of that. And I think tackling is another area where we had no way to judge that because we've never seen them tackle. I mean, we see them thud. But if it's a quarterback, or if it's a skill position player that's valued greatly at practice, they're not getting hit hard. And they blow the whistle when somebody's within 2 feet of them. And so, there was no way to evaluate that. And then offensively, I think, again, so much of what we see is scripted in terms of, here's the situation. This is the play. Now go play the play. Well, in a game, things change dramatically, and you're seeing different looks. So I'm not saying all that to excuse us. I'm just saying that, from what we could witness, yeah, man, they're a very talented physical team. And I think they're still a very talented physical team. But now they have to prove they're better football players, and that, so I think it's good what Norvell said. I think it's good what Adam Fuller said. I like their approach. I think that they owned up to everything, but now the question is, okay, how quickly can you fix this? And we'll have to see.
Yeah. To that point, I mean, I don't want to get into like the effort versus execution thing, but we got a lot of questions in the Renegade Express mailbag, which, by the way, you're going to help out with tomorrow, Ira, hopefully.
Sweet.
Please. But there's a lot of questions about like effort, and I didn't want to ask, I mean, because Norvell sometimes can get a little bit defensive about his guys, which is totally fine. Same thing with Fuller, but I kind of try to ask Fuller about that a little bit, just about, you take pride in something, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and that's like to stop the run. So like when it's taken away from you in that sort of manner, is it easier as a coach to be able to ask your guys, to crank up the execution and crank up the effort? Because I really wanted to see if he was going to say anything about the effort. A lot of people basically, Ira, are saying like the team did not play tentatively. I don't want to say the S word, but you know what the S word is when it comes to, criticizing someone's effort. Did you notice it? I was on the field, man, and I don't know. To me, I didn't see some of these things. I see people constantly kind of echo chambering, but I feel like, execution is the thing that you probably can improve on and clean up really quickly here in a week and get ready for a Boston College team on Monday. I don't know if effort's something you can fix that quickly, or maybe it is. Do you think effort, how much of the problem is it, if it is any, in the pie chart to get things fixed between now and Monday?
Yeah. I don't think it was like widespread lack of effort. I think that there are some plays where that shows up, where guys look like they're not doing anything, and I think in some cases, I think the coaches, you got to read between the lines of what they're saying in the press conference. People watch the press conferences. They talked about at one point about, guys, letting their eyes trick them and trying to figure out where the play was going before just doing their job, that kind of thing. And that's, it's common, man. It happens. Like, you're in play 45 of a game and you're not having any success. And it's like, okay, well, I've been doing this and it's not working. Instead of me doing my job this play, let me look up and see if I can figure out where the ball is going and go make a play. Well, that is not your job. And that leads to you looking like you're standing around looking instead of, maybe filling a gap or trying to spill a play or whatever it is. So I think it's a combination of things. But I don't think it was overall lack of effort. I think it was, and I thought Fuller described it pretty well. He said, I tried to explain this a little bit in my 3-2-1 column, but he outlined it better and in more detail. But he just said, a lot of times it looks like you're getting pushed. Well, you're getting pushed around, but it's not because you're not strong. It's because either you use poor technique, or you're not using your eyes. Your eyes aren't in the right place. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So in other words, if you're looking for the ball instead of just trying to beat your guy, that's going to make it easier for him to block you. And I think there were a lot of cases like that where they made themselves easy to block. And so when you watch those plays, I can understand why people feel like there was no effort, because some of those plays, man, everybody gets blocked. Nobody gets off a block at all. And so when you see that, you think, well, man, these guys aren't even trying to get off blocks. But I don't think that was the case. I just think that I think there might have been some of that, but I think more often it was, Norvell used the phrase trusting your training or whatever. It's like, you're not going to beat the block by just wanting to beat the block. You've got to use the techniques that you've been taught. And I think there was a lot of that. I just kept thinking back to, and it's, this is year 5 of this program. So that's probably not understandable or acceptable. But you do have a lot of new faces.
Yes.
And you also have a lot of guys who are stepping into bigger roles, which we've been talking about. So I think it was just a perfect storm of all those things. But I got to think, man, you have two choices. If you had the choice, excuse me, if you had the choice of having a team like Georgia Tech, where they played probably to the best of their ability and they eked out that win, or you have a team like Florida State that played about as poorly as they could play and barely lost, I think you'd rather have that team, because if you fix these issues, then you can still get a much higher ceiling. And
absolutely. Well said,
so I think that's where Florida State is.
Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida, cptallybar.com. That is the website. Daily lunch specials Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. On Thursdays, cheesesteak sandwich, chicken or steak. Only $8.99 comes with a side dish of your choice. Straight fries, curly fries, onion rings, potato salad, broccoli, side salad, tater tots, or freshly cooked potato chips. But happy hour today and every weekday from 4 to 7. And then at 11 to close. And all day Sunday. Does the NFL start this weekend? I don't know. It's not rhetorical. There's an answer to it, but I don't know. I stopped playing fantasy football. Now I don't know what's going on in the NFL. Not that hurt about it. This Saturday is going to be awesome, though. So many games. LSU's playing Southern Cal. Yeah. Florida and Miami, which I don't. Somebody said I guess we have to root for Florida, which I don't know. No. I mean, that's not a conference loss. It's not going to affect Miami's ability to win the conference. I don't know. I'm not picking sides. And I'm not going to pick the side dish that you should get with your cheesesteak sandwich at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. You choose. Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Tallahassee, Florida, cptallybar.com, the website, 2475 Appalachia Parkway. I do think these errors, if you will, I think they are correctable, which is why I'm not panicking, on a large scale sort of issue here. But I know Papoose just brought up the whole cliche about you got to make your biggest jump from week 1 to week 2. It's like, we have to do that. And I don't know if he said it or Fuller said it or Norvell said it. It was kind of like it was a throwaway comment. It was part of a string of things they were talking about where we do have guys that have played a lot of football, but this is their their first time playing with this program. So that's why I just feel like they've got 11 more games of runway to kind of build and gel. And I know you don't want to use the season necessarily to gel, but that's kind of the situation they're into. So if the upshot to me, Ira, is the fact that I feel like 30 things had to go wrong in a row for Florida State to lose the game, that's easily correctable to fix a couple of those so that you can win a game. If that's the upshot, my concern is I don't necessarily like the culture of the transfer portal, but I think it's an incredibly useful tool. And I think you can build a championship team using the transfer portal. I think last year was like the example of it. But so many of those guys last year, Ira, that even though they were portal guys, whether it's a Verse, Tatum Bethune, Johnny, Trey, like they were in the program for 2 years. So it wasn't year one when everything took hold. It was like that second year in 2023. And then I think you can go back in the portal and add your finishing pieces. You can add your Braden Fisk. You can add your Keon Coleman, and then boom, now you're really cooking with grease. And you said this in the wrap, and it really caught my ear, and I'm glad you're here on the program because I want to ask you about this when you said that, the last 2 times this team has played a game, things haven't worked out their way. And you mentioned the Orange Bowl game. You're like, listen, it happened. And it's a weird thing to kind of touch and talk about because I feel like the core of this team was the core that played against Georgia in the Orange Bowl. And they went in the transfer portal and to try to like refix the core, which I don't think you can do in the portal. You can add finishing touches, but like you still need 2 years of like some level of continuity, and this team's not going to have that. So that's my concern right now. I do think they can correct a lot of these mistakes, but I just wonder how quickly can they do it? I guess is my concern because they haven't played so much football together. I know that was a lot to unpack. Yeah. Feel free to poke holes wherever you'd like.
No, I mean, I think that's what we're all going to see. I mean, I think that's the grand experiment here. You're right. This is different. Every transfer portal team, or team that's got a lot of transfer portal pieces is not created equal. And people forget that, Jarian Jones and Fabian Levitt were transfer guys, but they've been here 4 years. As you said, Johnny Wilson, Trey Benson, a lot of Jared Verse, all those guys have been there for 2 years. There were others that had been here, longer than that. And so that was why that team, like we were so confident in that team going into last year's. We had seen all those guys play in this system, and we knew how they were going to handle situations and how they were going to play. So when you add in a Keon Coleman or a Braden Fisk, it, like to your point, it's not adding in half of your starters on one side of the ball. What was different about this team, and I think why we were, hopeful they would just come right out of the gates playing well, was you did get a higher brand of transfer. Mike Norvell's first 2 or 3 transfer classes, he wasn't pulling guys out of Alabama. He wasn't pulling a lot of guys out of the SEC. Jermaine Johnson was the one, and Jamie Robinson and Keir Thomas. But Keir Thomas was on the clearing track, when he came to Florida State, and he did really well. But they had an opportunity this offseason to go out and get a higher level of those guys. Marvin Jones Jr. was as high as big-time recruit as there was in his class. Earl Little was highly, highly recruited. Jalen Brown. All these guys were superstar recruits. So, you're thinking, okay, well, if just half of those guys hit, you're going to be in business. And half of them may hit, and they may hit this year, but, they definitely didn't hit that first game. And I think we probably all, including the coaching staff, man, like this is, I thought to me, one of the best parts of that press conference was, without saying it, I felt like Mike Norvell basically admitted that they did not prepare their team in a way that assured themselves the best chance of winning. Like, I think they thought they were going to win that game and could do what they wanted to do and accomplish what they wanted to do in terms of rotations, in terms of how they called the game, how they played the game. And the result was never going to be in question until the result was in question and they ended up losing the game. So I think that is, ultimately that's on the coaching staff. So I'm not even going to use that game as a referendum on all these players right now, because when Norvell says it's his fault, I agree with him. I think they didn't take that game as seriously as they should have. And that's, as a coaching staff, it's pretty inexcusable, but it happens. It happens all the time.
Two things that caught my ear at the press conference yesterday, Ira, and you kind of mentioned there with Norvell taking ownership and saying that, it's on him. Fuller also said, as a coach, he's like, when we mess up, it's our fault. Coaches, he says, when we do good, it's their fault. Saying that,
Right.
I'm like, that's awesome, man. That'll probably get you a 5% discount on whoever's out in the portal that you want to get next year. So I love that, Adam. But the two things that he said that I think are like real tangible, at least maybe another level of accountability beyond if you think that they're just kind of placating you by saying it's on me, it's my fault. When Adam Fuller was asked about linebacker play, and he's just straight up like, yeah, not ideal. And the first words is just, and the way he delivered it just so dryly and to the point, like he realizes linebackers did not play up to par. Again, we'll see if the defensive line can maybe do some stuff that helps alleviate the concerns of the linebacker core, or maybe they just try to figure out how they're going to roll things out. Maybe that's one of the groups that's dealing with injury that Norvell was kind of vague about in the beginning of the press conference. But the fact that Fuller, it seems like he kind of maybe identified what was struggling on his defense, so that helps narrow things down and get things fixed. And then when Norvell was talking about it's my fault not getting the playmakers the ball enough, like he seemed genuinely like his voice went down an octave when he kind of admitted about using Jalen Lucas. Like he realized, like, man, I pretty much said like he underutilized Jalen Lucas. So, I mean, the fact that both these guys are either identifying segments that need to improve or specific players they need to do a better job of utilizing. Again, that's another thing, just another data point that makes me feel confident things will get fixed here in the short term rather than the long term.
Yeah, and I think both those things kind of go with what I was just saying about, like, I don't feel like the coaches, I just don't think that they thought that was going to be that competitive of a game. And I mean, and the reason
they
I
always say it's about us. They're like, it's not about the opponents, about us. And
right.
I think they took that. They went a little too overboard on that.
Yeah, a little too far with that, because to your point, like Jalen Lucas is one of the more dynamic players on the team. Now, he's not perfect. He's not going to be an All-American running back. He's very undersized, and if he gets touched, he's probably going to go down. But he's a home run hitter, and you could see he was close to breaking one or two in that game the other day. And so he's anytime he touches the ball, he's got the opportunity, and he touches the ball 3 of the first 8 plays of the game and then never again. And so, I think that's probably on running backs coach David Johnson. Like, why did he not get back in more? And then ultimately it's on Mike Norvell, where you would have to assume, like, if they were playing LSU on Saturday instead of Georgia Tech like they did last year, I'm guaranteeing you they have plans in place to get all of their top players the ball. Like, it's not, oh, let's see how the course of the game goes. Like, they're going to have design stuff, specifically for guys who are their most athletic, most dynamic playmakers to get the ball in certain situations. They clearly didn't do that in this game. Right. This was more like just, hey, roll guys in and roll guys out. And so the same thing with the linebackers. I just think that, certain guys were not playing well and they kept playing. And there was just,
and they talked about Lola Hea. Ira, sorry to jump you.
Yeah.
They also talked about Lola Hea, who was the highest grade defensive player. And the plan was just to go back and forth on who's going to start each series. Like, after the first half, okay, no longer. We're not doing this like alternating, we're playing 3-on-3 at the park or whatever. We're trying to get everybody the ball. Like, figure it out and sharpen the pencil and lessen the load of guys that are rotating in and out there. I thought that's another good thing. Obviously, they're admitting, but in hindsight, some of that frustrates you. Yeah,
and I think that, it's so hard in a game we've all played sports at much lower levels, but when you play, even if you're playing pickup basketball at the park with your buddies or whatever, even if you're playing somebody that's not as good as you, if you mess around and let them get the lead, and now you've got kind of game pressure, and like it gets harder, and so it's hard to turn that around once it starts. And the last game they played, that you mentioned before, that Georgia game, I thought the biggest lesson, if you're Mike Norvell, you should take out that game. And the biggest thing, my biggest takeaway from that Georgia game in that Orange Bowl was Kirby Smart doesn't care who they're playing. He wants to annihilate them. And he knew that Florida State didn't have half of their best players or 3/4 of the best players, and he wanted to win by 100. And that's the mentality you have to have. It shouldn't be, this is a game. And I'm not trying
Sounds
to
like
be
an attitude of domination, Ira. If you ask me, it sounds like an attitude of domination.
Yeah, I feel like we heard that at some point. And I'm not like, that's obviously, and Mike Norvell's had tremendous success here. Last year was wonderful. But like, I'm sure that's why he's so mad at himself. I think that's why he's, I think I think they're so impressed by this team's physical skills in size and strength, which it's impressive, that I don't think they thought the result was ever going to be in question. And it's the ultimate mistake you can make as a coach. So I think that for those reasons, that's why I keep going back to that, is I'm not going to go crazy focusing on like every individual, problem, because I think that was an overall problem. And I think when that's the problem, I think it could affect everything. So, but we'll see. We'll see as they keep playing whether or not that's true or not.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like last year, going into the Boston College game, Jeff Hafley is just talking about that might be the best team I've ever seen that I'm going up against. And now Bill O'Brien's like, yeah, they're good. All right. And it's like, yeah, everybody, like, it's going to be a little bit different this year. We're about to the 25-minute mark. I'll give you dealer's choice here, Ira, if there's anything else that you want to kind of add, or anything that's that we're going to glean at practice here later this morning that might help buoy people's thoughts and feelings.
Can I defend myself on something?
Absolutely. And if you don't bring this up, there's actually another thing I'm going to ask you on the way out too. So
okay, you can ask me something else too. But so in the Warchant rap.
Okay, I think you're going where I was going to ask you. Go ahead, and I'll let you go.
So I made a comment. Corey made a comment about Jordan Travis and the offense. Is this what you were going to bring up?
Yep.
And so. And he brought up he's like, at some point we're gonna have to ask the question of what is this offense without Jordan Travis? And I said, come on, man, I'm not letting you write that. And so then some people on the message boards took that as like
the White House telling the Washington Post what they can write and what they can't write or something. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, like I'm the censor, and that's what's wrong with the media
the
today.
world. Yeah.
I get it. That's fine. And I understand where you're coming from if that's what you think what I was saying. What I was saying is, I'm going to protect Corey from writing something I think is really dumb. Mike Norvell, or at least talk him out of it. I mean, come on, man. And Corey and I, we can debate this if he wants to. But, dude, his offensive prowess is pretty well documented. He won a lot of games, scored a blank ton of points, and put up a ton of yards everywhere he's been. And, I love Jordan Travis. But, what was Jordan Travis? George Travis got basically left on the bench at Louisville. Willie Taggart and that staff didn't say anything. And that's, everybody uses that as a indictment of Willie Taggart. I mean, I talked to people who were at practices Jordan's first year or two here. He was not super impressive.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah. He lost confidence in himself. So I'm not saying he never had the talent, but it's not like he was just shining at practice and Willie Taggart was like, oh, I don't want to use this guy. Yeah. So my point is that, Jordan Travis, a lot of his success is owed to Mike Norvell too. They were great for each other. But yeah, man, that to me, that would be, I think it would be poor. It would make Corey look silly. And that's why, and I think if he sat down and really thought about it, I don't think he would make that argument. And I was half joking also. I mean, it was also for the fun of, I'm not going to let you write that. I mean, if he wants to write it, he can write it. I just am going to push back a lot before that ever sees the light. Because, I don't want to, it represents us as an outlet. And I don't think you can justify that. I personally don't think you can justify that based on what Mike Norvell has done throughout his career.
I like how you protected a grown man from himself, but what about like a 20-year-old intern who wanted to do 5 funky questions with Fred Rouse? How come you didn't protect him, Ira? How come you didn't protect that young man?
Can I explain that real quick, or do you want to explain that?
Sure. It's been 20 years in the making.
So when a young Aslan Hajavandi was interning for us at Warchant back in the early 2000s, in the early aughts, Fred Rouse, highly decorated wide receiver. You guys remember him, 5-star wide receiver. And did he call himself Funky Fred?
I don't know. I didn't do it though. I didn't come up with Funky Fred. Yeah, I don't know. He might. I think it was a moniker he dubbed himself.
He had all kinds of things going on. But anyway, so So Aslan had the idea. I mean, Fred Rouse was, to give people perspective again, like people know that he was a big time recruit. I had somebody on the staff tell me at the time when Fred Rouse, they saw his sophomore tape in high school at Tallahassee Lincoln High School, it was better than any receiver tape this coach had ever seen. Like, I mean, he was, 6'4", could jump out of the building. I mean, just everything you'd want in a receiver except everything you'd want in a receiver. And anyway, so, and he loved to talk. And back then there were no restrictions. Like we could talk to whoever we wanted to, whenever we would talk to. And Aslan's like, well, what if we did something like if I got him to give me like his 5 favorite, what was it? Like 5, you gave him different topics and then he would give you his 5
questions. Yeah. Like I do an ACC kickoff every that everybody likes now, but they didn't go off that great 20 years ago.
Well, the problem was, so I think we run it like, and then that first game, he like is terrible, shows his ass. I mean, it's just, he got did he get suspended for the first game? I think he got suspended for
some point. He got suspended. Yeah, I think
it might have been his first game. It was just like, and then it was just awful. Like everything about him, and it was so indicative of that time frame where they had no control and things were off the rails. And so he kind of became a symbol of that. And then we're doing these little goofy things with him. So people came down to you. So you're right. I should have had a little forethought back then. But look, I was younger too, Aslan. I'm a different guy than I was in the early 2000s.
It's fair. And Corey's not here, so we're not going to pile on, but I bet there is a trove of topics that Corey has thrown your direction, Ira, that you've had to shoot down over the years. Well, and he thanks you for it every single day. Like, thank you for not letting that one hit press.
Well, and he's on the flip side, he's had a few that I've told him to write and they've gone poorly. And and so he's had to bring that up too. But yeah, that's the process is we talk things through and look, man, if he made a compelling case, I'd be willing to listen to it. I just off the cuff, I think that seems a little silly, but I just I just did want to defend. When I did it, it was joking. I don't like tell him, no, you can't write this very often. So almost never, but he would need to come correct if he's going to write that.
All right. I'm glad we got that one cleared up.
Thanks.
That's Ira Schofel, the managing editor of warchant.com. They call him 5-star for a reason. Thanks for pitching in here, Ira. Hopefully we get you on the show tomorrow. I'm going to see if your agent will agree to the terms on that. So we'll see how it goes, but we'll be at practice.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, Jimmy Sexton's hard to get a hold of, but maybe you can.
All right. That's a wrap for us. Again, thanks so much to Ira. Support him by going to warchant.com and reading whatever he writes after practice later today. Although maybe Corey will write it. Maybe he'll write it based off the interviews that we perform with Mike Norvell and the players afterwards. So we'll be at practice later this morning. Usual stuff going on. Ben Stiller. That'd be crazy if he worked for us, right? Ben Spicer taking stills is what I was trying to say. Snapping photos. I'll be taking video. I'll be sure to take the good camera with me, or I'm going to try to take the good camera with me. So practice footage. Not sure we're going to have observations because now we're in season and everybody listen. I know you'd rather trade jobs with me, not lives with me. You'd probably rather trade jobs with me. But watching them practice during the season it's not watching paint dry, but like it's not that sexy. Not a lot of sexiness going on, but I get it. You guys want to see all sorts of things change. You want to see 3 linebackers out there. We'll see if they're going to do it. We'll see if we can report on it. But we'll have a report from practice video, the first few periods, and we'll have all the interviews afterwards. Maybe we'll do a War Chant rap. Maybe we'll do stand-up, Ira and I, a Vitamin Energy War Chant rap. We'll see how it all goes. All right, so I'm rambling. That's a wrap for us. We'll have Corey full bore next week. You're getting another show with Ira, everybody. I know no one's complaining. And if you are, look in the mirror. Don't you dare complain about Ira Schofel giving you news when it comes to Florida State. Jeff Cameron Show, 1 to 3 o'clock. Again, we'll be at practice. Go to warchant.com around like 9:45 for practice footage, or hop on there at 8:30 to watch clips of guys running into practice because a lot of you love that too. Whatever you want, we're here to serve it up. warchant.com, ultimate Seminoles sports source. For Ira, I'm Aslan. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy.